I think I've suddenly received insight into, or have received, insight into the way I, for instance, record. I try to return to what my original state was when I started the recording, to somehow tie the whole thing together, make it complete. In other words, what I think I've got is, in parallel, what we have with the prodigal son. He starts at home, he goes off, but he comes back. And it's the coming back and the joining up which can be such an incredible blessing and joy. In other words, you need to keep moving in useful circles where you start from, you go off, but you come round and back to, and you see where you were at the beginning now in a more advanced way. Your experience has utterly enriched the point where you first started from. The prodigal starts at home, but he's discontent. He goes off and has a hell of a time, and when he comes back, he's so added to. He's so content to be back. It's a wonderful outcome. And you need to do that, I think, in your thinking and therefore in your conversations. Don't just go on and on and on and on and on and further away from where you started. Bring the conversation and the thought back to where you started. Because you'll come back with much more than what you started with, and it will now be registered eternally in your experience. You have experienced then becoming. You have experienced life. You've started with the discontent, been driven out because of it by yourself, drives you out. You experience its ramifications in the discourse, in the experience, the high life of juggling this, that and the other ideas and things to do and all what seemed to be fun and so on. And you finally return with it tied down in some intelligible treasure that now changes your whole relationship to what you started with. And it's an eternal blessing. That is what life is. Life, the bit that you so value at the minute, now this is different, this is new, is that bit where you go off and actually suffer the most. It's when you come back to the peace and joy you had that you're overwhelmingly blessed, not in experiencing the pigsty. The pigsty is this universe, and you're mistakenly valuing it like nothing on earth, and Jesus is not in the story. He stays here the minimal amount. At some point he says, how long must I be with you? You know, you wayward people, how long must I experience this life? I long to be back with my Father. The glory I had with thee before the world was. Oh, and I need them to see, to be with me where I am. Lord, they need to be rescued from this pigsty. I don't mean I'm criticizing God's creation. The experience is so necessary for their eternal salvation and creation, if there's such a word. But it's hell. Fortunately, the kiddie doesn't realise that his incompetence and his ups and downs are hell. He just thinks this is normal, and he's struggling to understand it. You see, there's something strange going on here. This extraordinary mismatch of what you value and what you really need. You're hanging on, typically as a worldling, to life, desperately, because you want it and because you misunderstand it. And while you misunderstand it, you're driven out and kept out. That is the flaming angel with the flaming sword. He's called ignorance, blindness of who your Heavenly Father really is and what your true welfare and benefit is. That's what's keeping you out. You thought this angel was this fantastic angel of light. Well, yes, but not in the way he's appearing to you. He's appearing with a sword, and he's deadly dangerous, and he's not going to let you back in the garden. He's driving you off into the wilderness. He's your ever-present ignorance of self, masquerading as you, the one you're identifying with. He's not. He's the prince of this world. You can only be in this world, really, through some sort of ignorance. Even Jesus in the story, is claiming he's not complete yet. He's inferior to his Father, and he's in deference. He's worshipping God. He's still worshipping the Father, except that he's worshipping the Father in love, whereas they're trying to worship the Father in fear. And of course they don't like fear, so they escape from it. They choose not to be in fear of God. Don't like fear, that's horrible. They switch off the fear, but they haven't switched on the love. The result is, they find the world fascinating, and they go charging off doing this, that, and the other, worshipping the golden calf, etc. Materialism, I expect that means. But whatever. Wow. I'll pause there. But thank you, Heavenly Father. Yes. What I want to say here is we struggle to remain alive because our misunderstanding, our childishness, gives us an attachment to the things of this universe. But our true happiness and joy and pleasure is in where we've come from, our family, being with Dad and Mum and brothers and sisters back home. And at root, behind all this desire, we're lacking them terribly. And that's where we need to return. We need to die. We so desperately need to die. But our juvenile nature makes us heady and rush off into the wilderness for fun and for kicks and ride ride our motorbike flat out for the exhilaration of it. But it's all a tragic desire that springs from our misunderstanding of what is truly a blessing to us, which is simply being back home in our Heavenly Father's family. Love you, Heavenly Father. Thank you, Heavenly Father. So Jesus is not hanging on to life. That doesn't mean to say you have to be crucified to leave life. You can just disappear in your sleep, so to speak, if you wish. Jesus chose to do what he did in the story. You can choose to do what you wish to do in the story. It's not that you need to redo or compete with, in some sense, or reconfirm what Jesus did. This is simply a thing that is with you. There's no inference that you must suffer. Do you see the whole reality of the universe of uncertainty and change is simply a thought, a dream? What counts is that you come home. That's all that I value. I have been longing for you to be back, fully back, wanting to be back, loving all that I am and have for you and all your family here, waiting for you. We have waited what seems a long time, what may seem all of time to you, because you have been a child, away in a dream of uncertainty and unknowing. But you've returned from the dream, wonderfully secured in embrace with us with you, one indeed. Thank you, Heavenly Father. Well, I think I should run into the footnote here. It's down as a separate recording, but yeah, thank you, Heavenly Father. And that separate recording is called Overview, with the same number, 1556.4. Thank you, Heavenly Father.